Welcome to podcast 11 of the Raccoon Club podcast. Today I want to talk to you about something that I normally don't talk about at all. In fact, I normally don't get involved in, that's sports. And in particular, I want to talk to you about Colin Kaepernick and what I'm sincerely believing is now quickly becoming sort of a defining moment in American history. And I don't say that lightly. I really do believe that when people look back on this 50 years from now, they're going to see an event that was truly remarkable taking shape, and an event that in many ways may have defined the generation that it took place in. So to start off, I'm not much of a sports fan. I really don't watch sports at all. I think sports has sort of become the new religion. Having said that, I do love watching people perform at their best. And I do love watching people play at something that they truly enjoy. I play at podcasting. I play at screenwriting. I truly enjoy doing these things. For Colin Kaepernick, it's football. But for Colin Kaepernick, the love of his sport is now being jeopardized because of the love of something greater. And that's his love for justice. That's his love for equality. That's his love for fair treatment. And that's a love for the end of the racial bias and discrimination and oppression of African Americans in the United States of America. So let's start off by stating the obvious. It's not easy being an African American in America. It's not easy being black in America. It's not easy being a black male in America. So I'm always intrigued when African Americans take a stand for something and make a real public display about it. Not so much for the protest, but for the reaction to the protest. Because African Americans protesting their discrimination, African Americans protesting their oppression is not a story, because you expect that as a human being. You expect someone who's oppressed to stand up and say, "Stop oppressing me." The story is always in how people respond to that. Do people come to the realizations? Do people wake up and see what they've been doing to others? Or do they sort of slip back into blindness about things? Or do they fall back asleep and pretend that the problems that are there are not really there, or they're not problems at all, or that that group is just complaining too much? So a year ago when Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the National Anthem, I knew it was going to be the beginning of something amazing. What I didn't realize was what his act of taking a knee would reveal about all of us. Because that's what I think is fascinating, is his simple act of protest, of simply taking a knee, simply kneeling during the National Anthem, has revealed, I think, more about Americans and more about American businesses than anyone would like to admit. So in his own words, "I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way." Those are in his words. I'm always amazed when people in position of wealth and position of power take sort of political stands that they know can likely cost them. The NFL and its viewership skew largely conservative. So he almost certainly knew what he was getting himself into when he took that knee during the anthem. What I'm amazed about is sort of the ridiculous backlash that he's gotten as a result of it. First of all, never mind the fact that this is something that I think we should all be able to agree on, which is the unwarranted and unprovoked shootings of African American men by police officers. So it's stunning to me that this is something that's even controversial. This is something that we should all be sort of taking a knee about. But it also sort of highlights to me the fact that African Americans cannot protest in any way without angering white America. If they riot, white Americans say, "Oh my God, the African Americans are rioting." If they do a Black Lives Matter protest and simply shut down a street, "Oh my God, these African Americans are shutting down the street and they're making it uncomfortable for us." If they raise their fist in protest during the Olympics, oh my God, these African Americans are raising their fists in a Black Power sign during the Olympics. Taking a knee, to me, is literally the most benign thing you can do because it's a completely passive act. You're not getting up in anyone's face. You're not causing a scene. You're not shutting down traffic. All you're doing is taking a knee. And even that, evidently, is a bridge too far for many white people. So a guy kneeling during a national anthem, again, not flipping the middle finger, not turning his back on anybody, literally just taking a knee, that has triggered so many people that it really says something about how that it shows more about our ignorance about the national anthem than Kaepernick's protest to it. So let's get to learn the national anthem a little better and the history behind the national anthem a little better so we can place this outrage in its proper context. First of all, the national anthem does not date back to the founding of the country. There's a lot of people that still believe that the national anthem became the national anthem at 1776. That's not the case at all. It became the national anthem of the United States over 150 years later in 1931. So right off the bat, this sort of sacred symbol, this sacred song of America is not really that sacred. In fact, there was a congressman from Maryland who introduced a bill to officially recognize the Star-Spangled Banner as a national anthem. The bill did not pass. In fact, he tried 6 times in his career to pass a bill recognizing the Star-Spangled Banner as a national anthem, and it never passed. And according to Wikipedia, on November 3rd, 1929, Ripley's Believe It or Not had an article published, a cartoon published, saying, "Believe it or not, America has no national anthem." The U.S. Congress by itself rejected making it the national anthem at least 9 times during the 20th century. So obviously there wasn't that much love for the anthem to begin with. So national anthem is a relatively modern thing. So this idea that somehow Kaepernick is going against this ancient tradition is just baloney. It's just not true. So all the flack he's getting is just garbage. There's no sacredness to this anthem. It came about in 1931, over 150 years after the founding of America. So that's number one, is our reaction to things like this, that we tend to blow things way out of proportion. And we make anything that's a slight against ritual, that's a slight against nationalism, we tend to blow it way, way, way beyond what it actually is. Now, in case you believe that the outrage is solely from white America, it is mostly from white America. In fact, it's overwhelmingly from white America. But in case you believe that it's solely from white America, Hall of Fame football player Jim Brown just the other day came out and said, "I'm going to give you the real deal. I'm an American. I don't desecrate my flag and my national anthem." So the act of kneeling is seen as desecration of the national anthem. The act of simply kneeling is seen as desecration. Now, I'm not going to hold him too much to the words that he used because he may have just been speaking off the cuff. But the word desecration is like throwing a grenade in this discussion. It is an extraordinarily powerful word. But if that is what he was feeling, it shows you sort of the laughable overreaction to all of this. So now we get into sort of the bigger issues and why I think it's actually an extraordinary moment in American history. I don't think it's actually a small thing at all. For starters, his protests led to a tremendous amount of backlash against himself and his team. He was playing at that time for the 49ers. And the response was pretty visceral. He started getting booed. He started getting hate mail. He started getting death threats. Now, in solidarity, other NFL players started to take a knee, both black and white, but obviously the majority of them were African American. But even still, he became sort of the lightning rod for all of this. Now, this has manifested itself in that he's now a free agent and he can't be signed. No one is signing him. Most people will tell you he's a very good quarterback. So the fact that he's still a free agent after all this time is sort of stunning to many people who believe that he has value as a quarterback. Well, the rumor now is, or the stories coming out from the NFL now is that no one wants to hire this guy as a QB because A, they don't want to deal with the protests, both his and from the fans, and B, that they feel that he will actually cause whatever team that hires him to sell less tickets. Here's a man who is protesting something that's by any definition noble, by any definition something that should not be controversial. And because there's a lot of people out there who he's triggered with his kneeling, with his utterly peaceful and completely benign act of protest, suddenly he's become toxic to the NFL because the NFL is saying, hey, listen, we're a business and we're counting pennies and dollars over here. And at the end of the day, it's the bottom line that matters. So why is this important? It's important because it says a lot about not just how the NFL runs itself, not just the nature of capitalism, which at the end of the day is that it is profits that matter above all else. Again, this isn't the 1950s. This isn't the 1940s. This isn't even the 1960s. This is the 21st century. And an African American may essentially end up losing his job because he pointed out the bloody obvious to everybody. It's also, to me, really remarkable that an organization as large and as powerful as the NFL, that has the ability to actually capture the attention of lawmakers across the country. The NFL actually is a massive lobbying firm at the end of the day. It is able to lobby state and local government in ways that very few other businesses actually can because of the power that they hold in communities and cities across the country. That the NFL has been largely silent on this. That the NFL, instead of using its tremendous power, has decided to basically say nothing about this, has decided that at the end of the day, the only thing it is concerned about is selling tickets. Now, to that end, ESPN's Sage Steele, who's one of their sort of sports commentators, she said, I just disagree with the whole premise of the issue that people have. Ravens owner Steve Biscotti, along with the other 31 owners in this league, they run a business, and they have the right to make the decision that they believe is best for their business. Just like Colin Kaepernick has the right to express his opinion and do what's best for him, for his brand, and for his career. What is sort of amazing to me is that there is sort of this default reaction that we have that as business owners, of course, they have the right to not hire Colin Kaepernick. And that's actually true. As business owners in the NFL, they have every right in the world not to hire him. But at the end of the day, if you're admitting that the decision to not hire Colin Kaepernick is a business decision, and that business decision seems to be driven by the fact that his protests may make some of your fans unhappy or uncomfortable, but his protest is completely rational, is completely justified, and I'll say it again, completely passive. He's just kneeling. He's not disrupting the game at all. This is a pre-game thing. This has nothing to do with actually what happens between whistle to whistle on the field. What does that say about our sort of fervent reaction to constantly defend capitalists and business owners from making purely amoral decisions because it's, quote, just business? And what does that say when the NFL right now has people playing on its field that are criminals, that have been charged with murder, that have been charged with sexual assault, that have been charged with animal cruelty? What does that say when these same business owners will gladly take a player who assaulted somebody, who hurt somebody, who actually infringed on the liberty of somebody, over a player that took a knee before the game even started? Again, this is why I find this topic so fascinating. It reveals so much, not just about America generally, but about all of us. And I include myself in this mix as well. It really does reveal, it's like this bizarre Rorschach test that Kaepernick is seen by different people in different ways. And what you see of him reveals as much about you as it does about him. Now, let me just give you a quick rundown of NFL players that have been arrested or charged with things in the last year alone. So just the other day, New York Giants' Michael Bowie was charged with domestic violence. He allegedly grabbed his girlfriend by the neck during an argument, threw her on the ground. Then he allegedly broke 2 TVs and caused other property damage. I guarantee you he is playing this season. Just the other day, Dante Fowler. Fowler was seen punching a man after a brief verbal confrontation. He then stepped on the